Hey, good morning, everybody. We are continuing our series this morning of the development of a deep house track. For those that have been following along, this is a series that started with just some simple bass lines and, creating some ideas in deep house about what we can make a track sound like. And it's developed itself along to where we've got, we had chosen about, I'd say 16 different bass lines that we had created, and now I'm in the process of finishing up to the majority of the concepts and ideas for the track. So what I end up doing is I do most of my idea work over here in session view, and we did some of the original sound design, we did some of the original bass line design, we did some of the sample chops together, where I took the vocals and chopped them up. And I'm nearing the point of arrangement. So for the quick overview, we started originally with a simple bass line. And this was one of a bunch that we developed and played around with just to see if we could get some ideas laid out in the deep house concept. And again, I tend to lean towards the FM kind of bass sound with the repeating sixteenths and a rest in between as what I think of and hear as the deep house sound. I mean, the quintessential sound to me is really just this. A kick and a very deep bass playing off each other, sitting at a pretty groovy sound, and then filling the rest of the track up with musical elements that are a little bit more soulful, a little bit more, I think, traditionally musical. They do tend towards the ostinato type concept and sort of building one phrase over time. And making that interesting with vocal chops and variations of the instrument sound and or the melodic content, and that's what we're head for as we head into the arrangement. But what I've spent the last couple sessions working on is, okay, so we've got a main bass line, which this sits fairly healthy groove with a rhythm section. And drums that go along with. And a little melody to sit on top of that. I'll bring that in here. So with that as our main hook, I developed a few other variations and some breaks to go along with. Let me just do one thing real quick. Take the Vox out so that they're not chopping in and out. So I've got a first break, which I've got this was one of the variation bass lines from our original ideation set. So and with the kick drum. And I wrote a very simple little breakdown to go along with that. It's playing with this ARP that we had originally developed here, and you can hear that doing its thing on top. And I like ARPs that don't sound very traditional, so I like stuff that's got some interesting element to it. And on top of that, we layered in a melody line. Nice and simple, because this is just part of the break. And there's some development in that pad there you heard. This has actually got some relatively healthy sustain to it. And that kind of comes in over time. Then I have a true breakdown here. So in all of this in the session view, what I'm really doing is just playing with pieces and parts so that I can get an idea of where I might take the arrangement. And I develop some alternatives that can get plugged and played over in the arrangement side. So for example, over here in the hats section, I've got the straight hats, which are more or less an offbeat quarter pattern, with some little glitches and some other concepts, some other ideas in there to keep it a little more interesting. I've developed an eighth note version of that, and you can see that I've got variations in velocity down here live, and I'm using velocity ranges to try to give that a little bit more realism. I also will use more than one hat sample, and I won't just alternate between the two. I'll actually kind of, as you can see, randomize that a little bit as well. And then we developed a 16th. And then a variation on the quarter note pattern. So what this does actually is this, through some variations in the little glitches and whatnot, I think I also did some velocity changes as well. So you can see another trick that I've been doing with the velocity range is to take one of the hats and make it go positive, and one of the hats and make it go negative, which gives it about a 10-point spread between the two, but also makes the sounds just a little bit different. And then I think that's the same eighth note pattern right there. So all those have been developed since the last session. And these breakdowns, this one, for example, the sort of real breakdown is, based on just a simple sustained bass at the bottom. And a very long pad development. I think this is over full 8 bars. And probably even some automation's been thrown in here. Yeah, I'm automating the volume of it, and I'm automating the unison detune. And the ARP itself has also got some automation on it, I believe, where I'm changing around the filter, both the frequency and the resonance itself, and I think I'm also playing with the arpeggiator here. Yeah, so it looks like the style is actually not changing much. But that's all been developed now, so that when I flip this over into arrangement view, which I'll do the buildup of that in the very next section that I'm working on, that I work on. What I'll end up doing is take this session view, and I'll use Ableton's sort of built-in ability to just launch certain clips, and I'll record various different scenes here in session view, and then I'll play that by playing the scenes live into the arrangement view, and that's how I'll get my basic arrangement cut down. Now, I did a little bit of work on processing some of these vocals, just to clean them up a little bit. As if you've been following along, you know that I took these from a sample pack out on Splice, and they were originally at a fairly slower tempo, and so I had to do a little bit of work to clean them up and get rid of some of the artifacts of the warping, which I did that work. Then we did the breakdown melodies here in the last session, in between the last session, and these are just meant to be simple melodies, so that when we get into the breakdowns, there's something interesting in the upper registers with some melodic content there, but again, not too crazy, because we're using the vocal chops as well to create interest in there. And this the more traditional breakdown section is even simpler. So, and when we transition this over to the arrangement view, we'll do a fair amount of work with putting some variation of both sound as well as phrase and notes over in the arrangement view. So this morning's stream is going to be relatively short. I've got to get back to some other work that I've got to spend some time on, but I wanted to just give everybody an update as to where it's come along and what will be next. I think the general idea will end up being something, you know, along the lines of some start with a piece of the melody that becomes visible, maybe a chop or two. Don't give up. Don't give up. Still not really totally convinced that I want to keep that sound in, but we're going to keep it around for now. So something along those lines, right? We'll do a little bit of playing around in the next section where I'll do some, true arrangement and bring that together. But I think that that's probably where the track is headed for now. And certainly, if you've been here with me this morning, thank you for joining me. And if you've been just catching this afterwards and watching this as the recap, certainly appreciate the view. Love to hear from you. Give me some thoughts in the comments. And thanks, everyone. Hope you have a great day.